Okay, let's call this one When the Wind Gets Knocked Out of You. When the wind gets knocked out of you. Because listen, at some point, that will happen. At some point, the wind will get knocked out of you. At some point, something will happen that will just flatten you. Okay. And there are all kinds of variations and levels to that. But ultimately, I want to talk about what happens when you have something unforeseen, a curveball that has just come, out of left field and has disrupted, putting it mildly, disrupted your flow, disrupted what you've been working on, right? When I think about even myself in my career, I've had lots of curveballs, and certainly in my business as a CEO for the last 10 years, I've had lots and lots of curveballs. I was thinking about this. I am in an industry that is known to be a very high turnover industry. You might know a few coaches here and there. You see them today, tomorrow they're gone. Tomorrow they pivoted to a different kind of coaching, right? And in 10 years, we've been doing the same thing. Same exact thing, same exact client, same exact deliverable, same exact service. It has been consistent. And it can be easy to see something like that and think it's easy or think that nothing has ever happened. There are no curveballs. And let me tell you, there are daily curveballs. Okay. I have 5 or 6 curveballs before noon. And even when I think about my corporate career, the same thing. As I've moved up in leadership roles, the challenges have been innumerable. Okay. Whether we're talking about a nationwide product recall on one of my brands, okay, waking up one morning thinking everything's great, and boom, there is a product recall that is very serious, very significant, and all that comes with that, especially as a supply chain leader. Whether it is a partnership, a potential 9-figure partnership that I had been orchestrating that went completely bust because the other partner unexpectedly went out of business. Whether it was championing a highly anticipated, highly sought after leader that I'd hired and developed and groomed, and who then ultimately, let's just say, fell apart after I'd already championed them to leadership. Okay, whether it was at some point a multi-million dollar purchase that I approved of a commodity, only to have the market completely nosedive the next day. Okay, on and on. You don't get to lead at a certain level without having these stories, without having these scars essentially that you accumulate. And so it led me to think about, as I was thinking about something that happened recently. I had something else happen in my life that knocked the wind out of me, and it led me to think about many of the clients that I've worked with who have had similar challenges, and even many of you who reach out to me and say, I was thinking about making this promotion happen, or I was thinking about going after this job, but then something happened. Maybe it's something at work that has happened, or maybe something in your personal life has happened. It led me to think about some of the lessons that I've learned over the years in my career that have served me well, and I want to share them with you. Some of them you likely know, and this may serve as a reminder, but I want this to be an episode that you come to over and over again when you feel like something has happened that has knocked the wind out of you. I want this to be an episode that you come back to that helps you recover, that helps you gain your footing, right? So that you can continue your journey. So I pulled together, let's see, we've got 7 points, 7 lessons that I've learned over the years, whether we're talking about in my corporate career or in my business or my personal life. These are 7 lessons that have helped me when I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. Okay, so number one was to pay attention to what is happening physiologically. Pay attention to what is happening in my body. Okay. Now, this may seem somewhat anticlimactic as far as being the first point, but I don't know about you, but for me, when as somebody who's a high achiever, somebody who's always been a high performer in my career, whenever there was a curveball, my default was to go right into solution mode. My default was to push past it, pretend it's not happening, right? And go into solving it or doing something, right? Work harder, expend more energy, right? But I've since learned the importance of feeling my feelings, just actually feeling what's happening physiologically in my body, to feel whether it's my heart racing or my stomach churning a little bit or my palms sweating, to feel that, because for me, a lesson I had to learn was despite all the things that I had accomplished, despite all of my successes, I'm still human. I am human. I'm allowed to have these feelings. This comes with the territory. right? So for me personally, that was a lesson that I had to learn to give myself that grace and that permission to just take a beat and actually feel what was happening for me in my body. I think one of the things that can happen when you're a leader, when you ascend the ladder, when you are in charge of lots of decisions and you have a big team and people see you as successful, and even then turn that into business, when people see you as someone who's successful, people forget that you're human. They forget that you have emotions, that you have feelings. I see it all the time even in my business. People forget that you're human, but sometimes you can forget too. Sometimes you can forget too. Okay. You need all the same things that humans need. Okay. You need air. You need fresh air. You need to be out in nature. You need to drink some water. You need to eat really good food. You are human. And so I've had to remind myself. And so that's one of the things that over the years I've gotten really good at, allowing myself to feel what is happening in my body so I can care for myself and not disconnect or dissociate from my physical body while I am dealing with the whatever the curveball is. So that's number one. Number two is that feelings are not facts. Feelings are not facts. So I've had things happen, and maybe you have too, that brought on feelings of anger, of resentment, of apathy, of fear, you name it. Okay, I felt it, right? But those aren't facts. And it's really important to distinguish that. And if there's one thing I see for a lot of people that I come in contact with, this is one of the areas that a lot of us still need to work on. The idea that what you are feeling in terms of your emotions are not fact. They're simply emotion, right? And they're valid emotion, but emotions are not the place that you make decisions from. Emotions are terrible decision makers. Your fear, your apathy, your resentment, it's a terrible decision maker. So when you act from that place, when you respond from that place, when you react to what someone has said, right, you will almost always do the wrong thing. Almost always. When you react from that, from that place of strong emotion, unprocessed emotion, you will almost always say the wrong thing. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken with throughout the 10 years I've been an executive coach who have damaged relationships with their boss, with their direct report, with their skip level, with the vendor, with their HR, simply because they could not manage their emotions. They could not manage their emotions. Okay. This is a huge lesson that we all need to learn. Okay. Your emotions are valid. You're allowed to feel what you feel, but making decisions without the intention of what you want to come out of that decision, right? Letting the emotion drive the bus, right? That usually is one of those costly mistakes that you look back on and you go, if I just waited a beat, if I just waited 24 hours, right? I would have done something different there. Number three is that the dread is often worse than the eventual outcome. The dread is often worse than the eventual outcome because your mind is really good. It's remarkably good at conjuring up, right? Conjuring up and constructing the worst possible scenario, the worst possible outcome. Mine is too. But what I've learned over the years is that most of those things never actually happen. Almost none of it happens. Almost none of it comes true. So all of that staying up at night and rethinking and overthinking and all of that is all for naught. You are literally expending your life's energy in all that rumination. And it's not nothing. It is costly doing that. So knowing that whatever you're thinking in terms of worst case scenario is unlikely to happen is one of the lessons that I want you to take from this. Okay. Number four is to practice what I call the 60-second bounce back. The 60-second bounce back. There are setbacks that I recover from now in 60 seconds that even a year ago would have completely flattened me. I mean, fetal position, you would have had to come scrape me off the floor. Okay. There are things now that it takes me 60 seconds to really begin that recovery process. Versus again, it would have taken me weeks and weeks and weeks to get back on track. I would have lost weeks of productivity over one thing that happened. And now it's funny thinking about it. Some of those events I think about now and I laugh because at the time they loomed so large, right? But today, with a lot of work, this has not been just over the passage of time, with a lot of intentional work, those are things that I don't even think about anymore. They happen and I'm like, okay, great, here's what we're gonna do, right? Because they don't have quite the same charge. They don't have quite the same charge as they did before. Okay. So, but this takes practice. So I want you to ask yourself, like, what is it right now that happens that just again takes weeks off of your timeline? What is it that happens right now that, or when's the last time something happened where you just were completely off your game, right? You couldn't really think straight. You were in your emotion for a really, really, really long time, right? And then ask yourself, okay, how would I shorten that even by 10%? How would I shorten that by 10%? And then the next time something similar happens, intentionally practice that. Intentionally. And that goes back to number one for me, because when I talk about what's happening for me physiologically, this was part of it. Because I was ignoring what was happening, I wasn't allowing myself to begin that recovery process, right? But even something as simple as breathing, like actually intentionally box breathing, something as simple as that can begin that recovery process, right? Because the other side of this is if you don't begin that recovery process and actually address it, it doesn't just go away. One of the ways this shows up, by the way, is I'll talk to somebody and they'll say to me, I used to work at this company and I'm no longer there. And I'll say, okay, great. Well, now let's prepare for your interview for the next company. Let's talk about the stories we're going to tell from the prior role that will help you land this new role. And the moment they begin talking about this old company, all this other stuff comes up. All these emotions come up. All this anger and all this resentment and all this fear and all of it, like almost like PTSD comes up. And sometimes it has been months or years since they were last at that company. This is why I'm telling you, the passage of time doesn't just magically fix everything. There's work to be done, right? So practicing, allowing yourself to, again, feel what you're feeling, but then actively begin the recovery process from it, right? So it doesn't come back and rob you later. All right, number 5 is to never override your intuition. Listen, I'm still learning this one. I feel it this one often. I'm not even gonna front, okay? I'm still working on this one. Every time I ignore something because something looked good on paper, even when I knew there was that still quiet voice, I overrode it. I've paid for it dearly every time. Okay, so I'm not sitting here. I have not mastered this one. I have not mastered it. I'm getting better. Okay, I'm catching things faster. And I'm of the opinion that life will keep bringing the same lessons to you until you learn them, until you finally learn them once and for all. And since I have not learned this one, it keeps bringing me more and more opportunities to learn it. Okay, so the idea is that we've all been gifted with a knowing. We've all been gifted with a voice. And typically what happens is you'll see something, maybe something that you want to do or a job you want to take or something, and you'll just say, well, I'm going to go with it. And there'll be something telling you that this isn't quite right, but you'll ignore it because, I've been out of work for a while, or I'll just, you find some other logical, rational way to talk yourself out of it. Now, here's what I say is I don't say, I don't make decisions from my intuition. I allow my intuition to guide me to look deeper into something, right? So if there's something that I have that voice about, it's the idea is, am I allowing my intuition to guide me into maybe a bit more investigation, ask a few more questions, right? Like I said, I have not mastered this one. I still get it wrong. I still get it wrong. I'm working on it. I'm not there yet, but this is certainly one that I continue to learn over and over again. Okay, a couple more. Number 6 is to move the energy out of your body. Move the energy out of your body. This is huge. This is huge, huge, huge. We are human beings, okay? And stress gets stored not just in your mind, but also in your body. This is why, for me, I run, I walk, I lift, I do Pilates, I do it all because I need to do something daily. I need to do something, I don't care how short, I need to do something daily because the work that I do is highly I use up a lot of mental and emotional resources in my work. You can imagine, right? I talk to lots of people every single day, sometimes lots of people at a time. And then there's a lot of energy exchange that's happening. And so sometimes even a 75-minute call can leave me feeling like I've been talking for 6 hours, like I've been exchanging energy for 6 hours. And so for me personally, movement is how I get all that stuff out. It's how I reset. It's how I go back to equilibrium. Okay. So for me, movement is key. But also, there's lots of other things that I do that are not just physical movement, but also allow me to clear and declutter my mind as well. So move the energy out of your body. If you are in a role that is demanding of you, that uses a lot of mental and emotional resources, which I'd imagine is true for you, and even if not at work, but at home, you might be in a season where there's just a lot that's being asked of you currently at home. You have to make sure that you have some kind of routine or practice or ritual that allows you to move the energy from your body, because otherwise it calcifies. And don't even get me started down the path of how that leads to illness. It leads to physical illness. You've probably read the book, The Body Keeps Score, right? This stuff really does matter. Okay. All right. Last but not least, number 7 is to delay big decisions until I'm thinking clearly. So I delay big decisions until I'm thinking clearly. Now, I'm not saying I delay infinitely or indefinitely. This is where I have to know myself and know whether I am trying to delay because I want to procrastinate or because I really am trying to self-sabotage. It's not that at all. It's really when I'm in a place of heightened emotion, that is not the time to make big decisions. Very few decisions, if any, are improved by panic. So when something has happened and there's panic, right, that is not the time to make a big decision. And so for me personally, until I've had a chance to move my body, but also couple that with sleep and prayer and some other people in my life who I talk with, right? There's certain things, I have a formula that I follow that allows me to make sound decisions that are weighty. Okay, so if you don't have a process around that, I invite you to do that, because you will have bigger and bigger decisions to make the higher up you go, and you don't want to be haphazard. You want to have a clear process that you follow so that you ensure that you're thinking clearly, okay? And that way, the people who are depending on you and on that decision are connected to someone solid, right? You want to be somebody solid in spite of things moving and the ground shaking. You want to be somebody solid, whether it's for your family, your loved ones, your spouse, your kids, right? Your work, your team members. You want people connected to somebody solid. This is so important. Okay. So for me, these are 7 lessons. Okay. And like I said, some of them I'm still learning, but these are 7 lessons that I've learned over the years as I've navigated, challenging curveballs in my corporate career, certainly in my business and in my life. Because the truth is, as long as we're alive, as long as we're alive, and as long as we remain ambitious and productive, and we're doing something meaningful with our lives, the curveballs will come. There will never be a time where you solve all curveballs for all time. The curveballs will keep coming. They'll keep coming. Okay. And so it's really a matter of how well you can navigate those curveballs, right? How well you can navigate those curveballs, because how you navigate them determines whether this is just a chapter or this is the book. This is the whole book, right? It will determine whether this is just one chapter, one short chapter of a curveball, or does this get to be your new normal? All right. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that this has helped you. For those of you who may be navigating a curveball, navigating something unforeseen, hopefully this is giving you the inspiration and the energy that you need to come through it on the other side. And I am rooting for a kinder, gentler season for you. Thank you. We'll see you back here soon.